Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a Flesh and Blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 99. That is 2 6s upside down of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is Alan Cantador. Darick Oswald. Darick, I heard baseless allegations this week that you played matches of Flesh and Blood. I would like to hear from you whether or not you can confirm or deny said allegations.
I can deny those allegations. And here's my proof. Very clearly, I was casting The Calling in Dallas. So how could I possibly be playing at a local event if I, Tan and Grace, was on the coverage for The Calling Dallas?
So you've been called out because apparently Bryn is immune to your chicanery. And knows that wasn't you. And somebody else said they saw you in person.
Yeah, it goes even worse than that, though. So here's the thing. I still disagree with you. I wouldn't say that I played matches. Flesh and Blood was played, and I was in the vicinity. But I'm not sure that what I ended up doing could be called playing Flesh and Blood. I did participate in a ProQuest this past weekend, and it started okay, but the longer the day went, the more it was very apparent, the more my lack of physical reps was hurting me. Because, and I don't want to take anything away from my opponents. My opponents all played very well, but there were several times throughout the day where I was making play mistakes. With the exception of one, almost all of them were what I would describe as mechanical play mistakes, where you get into the rhythm of doing those things when you play physically. So not being able to go to armories a lot recently and playing a lot on Talishar means that you do silly things like miss tunic triggers. But even beyond that, there was one game, for example, where I put myself in a poor position because I had wrote down the wrong life totals. Again, something Talishar tracks for you and you kind of take for granted. Both for myself and for my opponent. We had to go and like do a little bit of bookkeeping twice during that game. Once they were wrong and once I was wrong. Turns out figuring out the math is a little bit difficult sometimes when you're piloting Uzuri, because when those daggers hit and then you don't like remember to account for the minuses, sometimes your opponent is lower than you think, and then other times for whatever reason you think you've hit and you did not, and so when you think that they are at 1 and they're actually at 2, it turns out activating Flick Knives to throw your last dagger is not the thing you should do.
Nope, sure isn't.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it was again, it was just rust. Like that's the reality. I know what went wrong. The good news is I know how to fix it. I'm just going to be jamming a bunch more physical games and also just doing like some goldfish shenanigans at home so I can go through the reps. The one actual like true play mistake, and I don't even know if it could be said it cost me the game or whatever, but there was a matchup I had against a dash where after the fact, I realized I'd popped my snaps way too soon, and it opened me up to T-bone activations later in the game. If I keep the snaps around, does the flow of the game, because I mean, it didn't matter for like 6 or 7 turns, right? So like if the flow of the game goes differently because I don't have the big pop-off turn early where I had the window of opportunity with snaps, who knows? But yeah, I played games. I started 2-1. Felt pretty good about my deck choice overall. There are some things that I tried, being that this was the first one I was going to, that I will change for later as far as deck construction itself. There's about 3 or 4 slots I'll change total. But the bulk of what I brought, I actually felt really good about, and I felt like even in the games that I was losing, I was in them. I had passed a victory if I just didn't punt. I think that Bravo, so I took Uzuri. I think Bravo would have been a better deck choice, and I will probably play that at the other constructed events locally, just because here in Michigan, there were a lot of Lexi players to be expected, but there were surprisingly more Ninja players than I was anticipating. In fact, on Saturday, and I know Ben, who is a listener and in our Discord, he can confirm, but I believe Saturday was won by a Phi. And there were some teammates that like all played together, and they were basically like all on Ninja. So we had like multiple Phis. There was a Katsu. So I expected, so part of the reason that I selected Uzuri to start is I expected more Icelander, and I think I counted 3 at the event that I went to, which isn't necessarily like a low-ish number because the field was definitely dominated by Lexi, but I just expected more. And I really like Uzuri's matchup a lot more into Icelander than I do Bravo, but given the sheer number of dashes and ninjas that I saw, one dash was what I call my nightmare dash, the defense.deck, just
turtle
pistol,
dash. Yep.
Yeah, pistols, red unmovables, whatever. So that person, I don't know what it is about that matchup, but it just breaks my brain, and I never do well into it anyway, whether I'm on Uzuri or Bravo.
It's bad for both, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is just that, but it's just that one hurts my brain. But the other ones were more boost oriented, and I like Bravo into that. I mean, Uzuri is fine, but like I like Bravo into that. I like Bravo a lot into Ninja right now. Starstruck is a hell of a card. So I think that's what I'm going to do going forward. But I say that it's worse than what you think, because not only did I play and not do well, but I also feel bad because, speaking of poor Ben, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but I friendly fired him in round 3. So when I say I started 2-1, one of those was on the back of Ben.
Well,
and I feel bad because like that was the only game that didn't feel close. Like I had him on the back foot pretty early, and then he just never got a chance to take a shot. Like he had to play one crippling without dominating it. The other one he played and he got me. It was like, okay, I didn't care. It like barely phased me. And then the rest was me just abusing him. So I'm sorry, Ben.
I mean, are you though?
I mean, I would have preferred it to be like a close, more fun matchup. But that one, I don't know. It just didn't feel like he was having fun. And it's not just because of the losing. It's because he was like literally on the back foot from the beginning.
Those are hard.
So
that makes sense. But
and you don't like to do that to your teammates, right? Like nobody likes the friendly fire, especially if it's so one-sided.
Dagan White exists. So
well, yeah, Dagan, he came up in one of the other Discords I'm in. So I've got some good friends that have been competing in ProQuests. So Skylar is probably how Dagan knows him, but I know him as Casanova. That's what he casts under. So he does like TFT. I did a bunch of Legends of Runeterra stuff with him. He said he ran into Dagan at a couple of ProQuests as well. He reported Bravo won their ProQuest on Saturday, and there were 2 Bravos in the top 8. And Cass made it to second place in the draft ProQuest, losing to
Dagan. Yep.
Dagan.
Yep, that happened.
Yeah. To which somebody else in that same Discord said, well, that's because it was a one-day event. You can't beat Dagan on one day.
Oh my God, brutal. I mean, sure. He's, I mean, it's technically because he played in both and back-to-back up there in Minneapolis. That was day 2 for him, but it was a one-day event though, so that does make sense. Yeah. It's nice for us because now the invite passes down for the 2 Des Moines events. Thank God. Otherwise, it's just, well, one of them's gone. But yeah, so I actually played in one too. Play was limited. I died in the quarterfinals. My losses were to the person that won the event. Okay, moving on. I mean, that's not much more to say. It's just I forced Teklo. You can't really force in this. I played Teklo in the first pod, just knowing that like that's going to be the easiest way to get, you know, X1 or whatever it needs to be to get to the top 8 draft. Like it was a small event. And so it's kind of dismissed it and said, okay, this is just your easiest way to get to that spot. And then in the top 8 draft, I was playing Max, but we were caught in this really, really weird spot in the corner we were in, because what we were seeing coming from the left and then coming from the right, the other side, didn't make any sense to what we would expect. So what the 2 people passing to me thought I was on, I wasn't on. And what the person I was passing to on both on to the left of me was not on what I thought they were on. The person to the right of me was, but it was a lucky guess at the time I did it, because the first pack I see comes with no Evos in it. And I'm like, okay, on Teklo, got it. I'll just dodge that. That's fine. Then the next pack I see has 3 Evos in it. And I'm like, okay, there's a better card in here. So maybe there was 2 better cards in here past that. And then eventually the Evos, again, were dry for the rest of the pack. I'm like, okay, so on Teklevasen. But I hedged a little bit in pack 2. I think it was a big shot in, and passed some goods to the right, and then I think that's what put him into Teklo. He wasn't in Teklo before. It turned out that first pack didn't have any Evos in it. So he didn't take one. There just weren't any, which is very rare.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fuck. So that was a little bit of a misread on my side, but what was I supposed to do? Then I saw 3, but they were 3 that like you wouldn't prioritize. So I was like, okay, that's totally reasonable to not take those, just take a better card. There was no rares left in the pack. So I was like, okay, so maybe like somebody took X on to his side, and then he took like the mechanical strength. I mean, like it all made sense enough to me to keep thinking that he was a Teklo. And then he ended up being a Teklo after I put him there in pack 2. So yeah, it was a little bit of a shit show, but I got a cold foil Max the Hype Nitro, I guess. So, that's a thing. I opened a Singularity. So I didn't have one of those yet. It wasn't a Marvel. I mean, it's a regular one, but I didn't have one yet. And I did not get shot for going to Missouri on my wedding anniversary to play Flesh and Blood. So, there was that too. We came up quite ahead in all those exchanges. And also, my 30-day tryout is over. Cheers.
Oh man.
It's
just
good to be
time
back
for you to join me in Barcelona, right?
No, not doing it. I've just got too much. It sucks, but I've just got too much. I'm going to be very jealous for reasons we'll talk about later. But yeah, I mean, it's it was because I was in the store in Missouri, Mind Games and Magic, really nice little shop. They do nice work in Lee Summit. So shout out to those guys. But I'm in there and I'm like, yeah, I was on a 30-day tryout. This is my day. This is my end day. So but I'm here playing games, and dude's like, this is a dry store. You want a beer? I'm like, yes. He's like, cool. Boulevard Wheat. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go do my draft and I'm going to come back. And he's like, yeah, cool. And so dude just got me a beer. Like,
we, where I was playing my ProQuest on Sunday, they do serve alcohol if you're over 21 and obviously like respectful and not belligerent at the table or whatever. So we had one person who was on a brute and they were like, hey, is it like against the rules if I just get a beer every time I roll a 6? And they were like, nope.
Well, here we go. I'd be taking them on 1s personally, but shots on 1s, beers on 6s or something like that. But the shout out. So I have a special place in my heart for all of the LGSs that serve alcohol and do it in a way that doesn't disrupt the store and the games being played. I've encountered it a few different times. Sometimes it's literally because a place has the perfect space for it. So Fantasy Flight Game Center in Minneapolis, the old one where they had Surly on tap, was perfect because they just had the space for it. And that's how they kind of segregated it, right? They made it so, that's a terrible word, but they made it so that it was, the drunks are here and then everybody else can be over here or whatever. There's only one place I've ever encountered that did it seamlessly with not that much space to spare, and that's the Boardroom in West Virginia. So that place serves great beers in a super awesome environment. Like, I played an entire Pro Quest where people were just grabbing beers. Nothing bad. It was perfect. So if Kayla, Boardroom Crew, if you're listening, thank you. It was one of my favorite experiences. It just sucks you're in West Virginia. I would love if you were not, and relatively closer to me, or if you were in the same vicinity as Charmer, maybe Charmer and I would live closer together. Like, that's something to consider.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We are already completely off the rails, though. That's awesome. But, well, we kind of don't give a fuck either. There's that.
I mean, we're not that far off the rails. We're talking about LGS experiences.
Yeah, involving different varieties of alcohol consumption, I guess. That is all on brand. We did get a YouTube comment that tickled me a couple of episodes ago, which was like, isn't this supposed to be a Flesh and Blood podcast or something to that reference? And I was just kind of giggling at it. I'm going to go grab the actual comment because this amused me. And I don't know if it was, in jest or not. And, frankly, I don't care. Oh, why is this switched to the wrong channel? Well, this is fucking awful. Why? Okay. All things are bad now. I tried to do a thing. I never should have. Fuck it. So yeah, they but at any rate, believe me when I say that their comment was something along the lines of, isn't this, don't you guys ever talk about Flesh and Blood or something like that? And it's like, occasionally, I don't know. Like, this isn't the vibe of this show. Has always been and will continue to be people hanging out, talking about the game. While the game is the impetus of the show, the driving force of what we do is having a good time and entertaining people. Like, we're not here to discuss the ins and outs of all the little fucking things. We're here to be idiots. Well, I am. There's a smart one, so I need you to continue.
I mean, I don't know that I would go that far. I just try to make sure we stay a little bit more on topic, but also, I mean, the reality is for me, this podcast has always just had the vibe of like late night LGS conversations,
exactly that
you finish your armory, or even just, like during an armory or during a weekend event or whatever, where, you're playing the game, but you're also chatting, right? And like throughout the game, you will talk about the game, but you also talk about everything else that's going on, right? Whether it's with the game or at the LGS or whatever. And it's that kind of community experience that made me fall in love with card games to begin with, right? It was as much about getting together with folks as it was about the card game.
Yeah, it's honestly trying to replicate my favorite part of games. And my favorite part of games is not necessarily the game itself.
No, I mean
everything else.
I would go so far as to say that really, like, since I hit adulthood. Now, when I say adulthood, I don't mean 18. I mean, like, when I, finally became a tax-paying, home-owning adult, moved out, got married, whatever. But since then, the vast majority of my gameplay experiences, especially the ones that I've like really fallen in love with and put a ton of time into, has been centered around the social part, right? When I first bought a home and I moved out and whatever, my wife and I played World of Warcraft together, and I was a guild leader and a raid leader, and we had yearly barbecues. We had, people drive from all over the country to my house one year. We all drove down to North Carolina one year. There was a meetup in Vegas one year. But again, like I loved playing World of Warcraft, but I loved it because of the people. And then when Star Wars: The Old Republic came out, I was a guild leader in that, and I hopped over there because a lot of the people that I wanted to hang out with went there. I mean, I love Star Wars, and I actually really enjoyed the game as well, but I did it for the people. And it was the same thing with Magic, all right? Like, part of the reason that I played Magic and I kept going to the events and the Grand Prix and whatever was because there was a team of 6 to 8 of us that would routinely all go together. And then when they stopped going, I stopped going as an individual. Like, I could have, but it was not a priority for me at that point, because as much as I loved the game, I also loved the people. And it's kind of the same thing even, you know, with the digital card games, as dumb as it sounds, because it's usually, you know, somebody that you don't see on the other side of the screen or whatever. But the ones that I've really dove into, part of the reason I dove into them so hard was because I made a bunch of friends playing them, and then I liked the people as much as I liked the game. And that continues to be the case here with Flesh and Blood. And that, means that sometimes we don't talk directly about Flesh and Blood, right? We're not going to give you the meta report. But to be honest, right, if you're listening to this, while I don't consider myself any sort of slouch at the game, and I think that I have a good understanding of the meta and some of the inner workings, I would also say I shouldn't be the person you're going to for that kind of info, right? I'm more than happy to provide my opinions on it, and I think that I can do it justice when necessary. You know, I try to stay on top of things, obviously, because I enjoy casting. And as a broadcaster, it's important to know what you're talking about. You can't just expect to roll in and make shit up. But if you're truly like, if you're somebody who's like, hey, I want the competitive edge, then you should, you know, listen to, you know, Matt Rogers talk, or, you know, Michael Hamilton talk, you know, well, I mean, listen, you can say what you want about Matt Rogers, but he gets a lot of success in his region.
I just mad at him because he doesn't know your name.
I know. But like, my point is that there is a plethora of great content from great players out there if your goal is to just be better at the game. This podcast is not centered around being better at the game. This podcast isn't even centered around being better at being a human. So buckle up.
So my expertise is not in playing games. I've played a lot of them. I've played some of them at very high levels. I've been borderline good at enough of them to warrant consideration. However, my expertise is having a good time. That's what I do best. The thing I do best is have fucking fun. And we started this show with that thought in mind. Like, when it was myself and Jordan and Abby, the thought process was, Abby's the ringleader, Jordan and I are the fucking circus. And that went for over a year, where that was the vibe, and that's how we handled it. Now, when they left, the new thought process for me was, I need somebody that can rein in the circus long enough and, you know, basically keep the asylum at bay. And little did I know that I was just getting another fucking you know, madman in with me. I thought I was getting a human being that could like maybe rein me in and not go, you know, it'd be a good idea if you were just more fucking unhinged. And it's like, you know what? You're right. That would be a great idea. And so that's what's happened. And
I mean, if you want, I can rein you in.
I don't want you to. I think that is way more fun when you don't. But the way that we do this, like a good example is when I talk to people and they talk about the way that we are with each other. Like when we are hanging out, or even when we're doing the show, or like what's Yumi and Flake or whatever, they all assume that we've been friends and known each other for a decade or more. Fuck, I have known you. It's a year this weekend. It is 1 year this weekend. That's it. That's it. And Flake is like a year and a half. So no,
Flake and I have known each other for a long time.
But
I knew him before he died.
The first time?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess he died
before the Roseanne Barr disease.
Roseanne Barr disease, or the Robert Guillaume disease.
The Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, that disease.
Yeah.
That robbed him of his mobility for a certain amount of time, and then he got a bunch of Oreos and got better. That's actually the full story, folks. You don't need to go and research anything else about it. But that's where we've connected, though, is that our interests line up not in the fact that we both love the same games, although that helps. It's lined up in the fact that we understand what the other person wants, and we're able to, you know, basically symbiotically provide those things to each other, and we have a good fucking time doing it. And because of that, we provide the show that people tend to love to listen to every now and again, for some unbeknownst reason. If viewership just dropped to nothing, then I'd stop. I mean, maybe I would. I don't know. I just wouldn't record it anymore. We would do this every week, and I would never record it anymore. But the fact of the matter is, I would keep doing it. That's the stupid fucking part. But yeah, and that's why we do things like FAP After Dark, right? It's another outlet. It's a way for us to blow off steam in ways that we don't necessarily want to on here, because one, it can make my editing job harder. And two, sometimes we'd rather have a closed environment so we can have some nuance to what we're saying. And we can have a discussion about it with other people who may not be of a like mind, so they can understand things better, because it's better as a conversation and not as two fucking idiots spouting off. So that's where we're at. And if that's not for you, that's okay. Like, it's totally fine. I'm not mad if that's not what you're into. I just hope that if you are into it, you enjoy what we do. That's it. We have now gone 25 fucking minutes into what I thought was going to be a nice short show. And here we are again. This
is your fault, because I can't think of a time when you've said, hey, it'll probably be a short show, that it has ever been a short show.
Nope, that's true. Well,
just throwing that out there.
It's amazing that I am so good at just completely sabotaging myself in every way, shape, and form. I am a master. Moving on. We're going to move on.
Okay.
Oh, no pushback. That's great. We're going to talk about the Calling Dallas. I
have a lot of knowledge about this since I casted it.
You did not. That was so, because Tannen hadn't casted an event in forever, I think we need to make sure that Tannen gets his flowers. Yeah. And it was Tannen Grace casting the event.
It was Tannen Grace. The only reason that I feel really bad, if I'm being honest, was I hopped on a Discord call with Tannen, and he was like, hey, congratulations on, casting the Calling Dallas. And when I hopped in, I was like half paying attention. I was in the middle of doing like 10 things or whatever. And I didn't think about what was happening. And I went, no, man, I'm not casting it. And then I realized it was Tannen who said it to me, and he was like, oh, because I let him down.
Yeah,
I feel bad that I missed my own bit at that moment. Like, I let Tannen down.
You did. So the Calling Dallas was won by Dromai. Dromai closed an event.
Yes.
That is already something noteworthy.
I mean, if you can't do it when you're half of the top 8, though, like, at that point,
right,
we're gonna have to change it from Dromai to Dagonai.
Ooh. Okay, somebody's out here catching fucking strays. That's not where anybody wants to be. But Dagon is currently catching strays.
You only hurt the ones you love.
You only hurt the ones you love and Flake. But so we had so here the top 8's really easy to talk about, because 4 Dromai, 3 Lexi, and a dash. The dash was dead in the quarters. Because, so I don't think that the dash so if you're full turtle dash going into Dromai, you're probably okay.
I think that's the only one
that's the only way that you're okay. If you're not full turtle,
even then, like, if I'm being honest, even if you're full turtle, I think that you've got to get a couple of items early.
Because
you really need to have an answer for if they do any sort of like multiple dragon turn. Like, you need to have a very cost-effective way to ping the dragons and keep the board clear. If Dromai gets a board, or if Dromai gets an early Tumultai, then you are way behind. So it's definitely not unwinnable by Dromai, but I do think that Turtle Dash has a shot. You got to get your game plan up going early. And I don't think that the traditional like aggro boost dash has a good matchup.
Not even a consideration. So here, like, as an example, like, I've been playing a lot of Dromai online just to try to get used to the deck. And I played against a Turtle Dash, and I mean, it wasn't close. I beat them pretty easily. And then I get a few matches later, I get paired into one. I'm like, okay, I think I can do this again. But within the first probably 5 turns, they had 2 purifiers and 2 of the +1. Why can't I think of the name of it right now? But so basically they're shooting the gun 3 times a turn at
so
three
the
a pop.
Go Again should be induction chamber, and +1 should be the purifier.
So they had two induction chambers and a purifier out. So now they can shoot down effectively any dragon I play. And so it was like, wow, this is hard all of a sudden. And even then, if I were able to tumultuous away their only AB piece, I probably win that game. So it is very hard, regardless. And I'm not very good, as of yet at playing Dromai. I'm just like at novice levels. So we get Dromai winning, because when you have half the top 8 and you don't win, that's probably a bad sign. It was Guy Cohen over Matthew Vore. Now, Guy is a stan. That is a Dromai player. Okay, that makes sense. Matthew Vore is not known as a Dromai player. The Vores are Kano guys. Normally. So interesting there. Also, in the top 8, you also had Jacob Baugh in the top 8. Now, you might be hearing me say that and like, that makes sense. There was a dash in the top 8. Nope.
But it wasn't.
He was playing Dromai.
Yeah.
The dash in the top 8 is a name you would expect to be a dash in the top 8, which was Merritt Kemp. Totally makes sense. 100%. Merritt Kemp on dash in a top 8. Tale as old as time. And then you have some of your usual suspects of Michael Fang on Lexi, Yuki Lee Bender on Lexi. So a lot of the usual suspects here. We're just missing a Brody Spurlock to really round things out. But this is the least diverse top 8 we've seen since Starvo.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's been a long time, but I think that speaks to the strength of the game. And it also speaks to, it speaks to a couple of things. I think it speaks to the strength of the game, that it's been so diverse, even with arguably a clear best deck in Lexi. We've still, for the most part, seen some pretty diverse top 8s. But on top of that, this is like the end of the Lexi time as well. Like, that deck has been figured out twice over. I know we're about to hit the next bullet point, but let's be honest, she is on her way out, right? So you would expect there to be a bit of a lack of diversity at this point, because it's the best deck and it's been refined.
Yeah.
And anybody worth their salt who's like actively trying to win without trying to do a little bit of flair or whatever is probably switched over to it. Or if not that, then the other option is Dromai. Now, Dromai is not that much of a surprise to me personally, because Dromai has been a good deck for a while, in my opinion. However, it is recently risen to much higher heights for 2 reasons. One is Tome. Tome is just good. Like, it's a hell of a card. And I know that, just getting 1 card, it shouldn't make that big of a difference, but it really does, right? Tome is like the 3 of a kind for that deck. It's just an engine that makes it capable of doing all the things that it wants to do. But even outside of that, even if it never got Tome, I still think that we were going to kind of see this because, historically this year, Dromai has had a lot of representation just without top 8s, right? I can't tell you how many tournaments that I was covering where Dromai was either the most popular hero or the second most popular hero, and then there wasn't even a Dromai in the top 8. So at some point, like, that deluge of Dromais had to hit a breaking point. And I think that the other thing besides Tome that has allowed that shift to happen is players are just getting better. It's not an easy hero to play, and it's not an easy deck to build. And when you combine those two things, I think that there is kind of this delayed reaction between when the deck is good and when the deck performs well. And I think we're now hitting the point where the deck is performing well because, I mean, you're always going to have your experts. You're going to have your Maras and these other people that are huge Dromai fans, and they will do well on it. But we're hitting the point now where I think there's enough public common knowledge about how the deck functions, what matchups it's good in, etc., where it is a respectable force. And so I'm surprised it's 4 Dromais, but I'm not surprised that, we saw a bunch of Dromize, and I would expect, if I'm being honest, I would expect 2 to 3 Dromize at Worlds.
Yeah, I think I think 2
for
to 3
top 8. There will be at least 2 or 3 Dromize. Let me rephrase this.
Sure,
in the top 8, right? There will be at least 2 or 3 Dromize at Worlds. I'm at like top 8 of Worlds. I expect 2 or 3 Dromize.
We can kind of get into a little bit of that later, especially in future episodes where we're kind of more examining. But yeah, so right now it feels solved, and that's where we're at right now. We've had a lot of different decks that are winning ProQuests, but those are ProQuests. I mean, their attendance from what I'm hearing around the horn is down. And I think a lot of that is reminiscent of the Starvo days where attendance was also down because we knew Starvo was dead and we didn't want to have to play against it. But I just wanted to play it, but anybody else that was like, you know what? I don't want to deal with Starvo. I'm just going to go ahead and not play. That happened a lot. And I think that's happening with Lexi now too. And
I'm personally very curious to see what happens here in Michigan and in my local meta next weekend, because this weekend, all of the events that were available were Classic Constructed. Next weekend, at least the 2 that are closest to me, are both Draft. Okay. And so I'm kind of curious to see what the difference in participation is between the 2. I know ours are, at least for this first CC weekend, ours were a little down. At least I want to say they were a little down. We had 36, I want to say. It might be a hair more. I don't know if somebody had a buy or not, but I know when I was walking through the tables, we were up to at least 36 for my Sunday event.
Yeah, that's around in this area. Granted, there's a calling going on, but and then next weekend there's a Battle Hardened in St. Louis. So ours, we're not gonna pull from east of us, but we have 2 events. We have a Draft ProQuest on Saturday and we have a CC on Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if we cap out at 20. Maybe 24 max on Saturday, and I'd be shocked if we hit 16 on Sunday. I
need to drive to Iowa.
Well, I mean, it's just right now there's where we normally could pull some people in from the east of us. We're not going to, because it's just as easy to drive to the Battle Harden. The Battle Harden has a ProQuest, a PTI event, and a Battle Harden. So you have 3 bites at the apple instead of 2. You would go to where there are 3 bites at the apple, not 2. Yeah, that makes sense. So there's competition around us, and that's having an impact. Plus, especially with the CC ones, it's a meta that people are just not interested in. And it's been like that for us locally for a while. It really has. I think with Lexi gone, and maybe even Icelander, we'll talk about that in a second, I think it will reinvigorate people and they'll try different things. But right now it's yep, I'm not going to show up and donate my money to lose to Lexi, or I'm not going to show up and donate my money to lose to Dromai, or I'm not going to show up and donate my money to lose to Dagon. These are all things that are a problem, and it's the way people think. And I get it. I totally understand. But right now I kind of wish they would just had it built into the system to be able to say, okay, she hit it. The last week of ProQuest season will be no Lexi week or whatever. And I get why they can't, because people had prepared, people have taken the time to address and tackle a meta, and it's unfair to them. But on the same token, it's also driving people away, I feel like. But we'll see. We'll see how this all shakes out. Moving to the next bullet point, Lexi's dead. She gone.
Yeah.
She's crossed the 1,000.
It's official.
It is official. On November 6th, a day that will live in infamy, Lexi, Livewire, the final hero from Tales of Aria, legal in Classic Constructed, will take a powder, as it were. And the real question now is you need, I believe the number is 32 pro quests out of Icelander to see her go. I guess I should have looked at that. That was terrible. Typing is hard when... So the LL points are updated. And with this, events, leaderboards, you have... That's not the right thing. Why am I bad at the internet? Can somebody explain that to me? Okay.
I bet the internet can.
Fuck. We're all screwed. So Icelander got 28 points in week 1 of Pro Quests. She needs 128 more to get out with 3 weeks left, right? Yeah, or 2 weeks. 2 weeks left. So that's not looking good. It looks like she's going to be around for Worlds and until at least the next update. How does that make you feel in all of this? If for people who are wondering, Dromai gained 176 on the weekend to move to 416, but 100 of that is a calling win. So 76 from Pro Quests. Would we be better off if Icelander was gone?
You know, I don't think so. I've been thinking kind of like long and hard about this, and the moment that Icelander leaves, I think that there are potentially some things that so yes, Kano exists and Rune Blades exist. Okay, so hear me out. Icelander is certainly a thorn in a lot of people's side, and obviously ice in general. I'm not going to try to pretend like everybody likes to play against it, but it keeps certain things in check. And right now, Icelander is like the arcane deck for keeping other ones in check. Kano is certainly viable, but not a lot of people know how to pilot it, and it can really, I think, intimidate some players from picking it up as a result. Like I said, Rune Blades technically exist, but if I'm being honest, as long as Warmongers as a card and Rune Blades don't have a good way to deal with it, I think Rune Blades are going to be on their back foot for a bit. And so that brings me to what I want to talk about, which is I kind of forgot what it was like to play against a ninja until I saw them at, my Pro Quest this weekend. And I really feel like if we have a meta where you lose Icelander in any sort of like that tax, like, yeah, we technically still have Bravo, but outside of that, you already have, Dromai, who is very, very good at being aggressive when she wants to be. And then if we see kind of like the return or the re-rise of Phi, I don't know how good that's going to feel for the meta overall. Because we don't have Oldhim to slow it down. We don't have, we wouldn't have Icelander at that point. We wouldn't have anything that like forces it to pay the tax. Now there are definitely some defensive decks. Like I said, Bravo is a thing, but if Bravo doesn't get the disruption stuff off, the problem is we don't have, at least currently released in the meta, a lot of decks that deal with the go wide part very well. That's what I keep going back to, right? Is that, yeah, you've got Guardians who have all these 3 blocks, and, they've got some equipment for, a turn or two, but the hit you for 1, hit you for 1, hit you for 2, hit you for 3, hit you for 1 thing is very difficult for a lot of decks to deal with, because again, we don't have the Oldhims. If we lose Icelander, we don't have Channel Lake Frigid, we don't have Crown of Seeds and effective shields. Like, yeah, I guess Bravo could run, shields, but again, they're not breaking the chain, so you don't get the reuse if you're trying to go with Rampart. I like that Icelander exists to keep certain things in check. And so part of the other reason that I mentioned Warmongers is that Warmongers is surprisingly effective, not just against Rune Blades, but also against Pistol Dash.
Yep.
One of my best turns on Uzuri was like a go wide. It was like a hurl into an attack that I think it was an E-strike into an attack that had go again, and then I ended with Warmongers, and it was the Pistol Dash player was like realizing that, you know, if you pick War, then you can do the pistol part, but you can't do induction chambers or plasma purifiers. And if you pick Peace, then you can do those, but not the pistol part.
The pistol.
So it's very effective there. And Warmongers is also kind of polarizing because it's meant to be, and this is my biggest problem with the card. It's meant to be a defensive tool, but the only deck that uses it properly as a defensive tool is Iyslander. And so the minute you lose her, other decks will run it, but not really truly defensively. So
right.
What I mean by that is, like, if you're playing Warmongers and Bravo and you play Warmongers, you're taking your turn off for them to take their turn off. That's
Correct.
your trade-off, basically, right? However, if you're playing Warmongers as one of your 15 blues in a Phi deck, and you can go, you know, 3 attacks into Warmongers against your Runeblade opponent, who now basically does, you know, half of what their deck wants to do. If you can do that, you know, once or twice in a game, then it's incredibly one-sided, right? Same thing against a Dasher or whatever. So all of this is a long, like, me thinking out loud rant, but I just really have grown to feel like, at least right now, Iyslander has a very specific place in the meta, and I don't know that I like what it's going to look like when she's gone. And even outside of Bravo, like, there are other defensive decks that can pick up the mantle. Obviously, you can play Turbo Defensive Dash, but again, she is better at blocking tall, in my opinion, than wide. You could play Tekla-Vasen, you know, with Arcane Barrier gone, then you can basically say, Kano's not real, he can't hurt me, and go Turbo, you know, physical defense. But even still, he blocks best tall,
right?
Not wide, even with the Evos and whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't even know if we're going to for sure get an answer out of the next set. Maybe we will finally get some cool axe wielding warrior that, you know, punishes go wide strategies. That might make me happy. But yeah, I'm happy that Iyslander is sticking around, and I never thought I would say that because I hate playing against her, but right. I think that she's very important for the current meta.
You know what slows down go wide turns?
Channel Lake Frigid.
A Zen State token.
Yeah.
You know what makes Zen State tokens?
Other go wide decks?
Other go wide decks.
I mean, that's the other problem too. Is like, yeah, you could just say, okay, well, then I'll just also play Phi, but then nobody likes feeling like, well, I lost that game because I lost the dice roll and, you know, they got to go second.
Yep. That's exactly what it feels like.
And I know that there's a lot more to it, right? That's a very reductive take. I'm just telling you that that's what it will feel like. Even if it's not the actuality, that's what it will feel like. That is what it will feel like. And nobody has a good time there. So,
nope. Well, the person going second will probably have a fine time.
You know, maybe they do. I don't know. There are times where even when I'm winning, I'm not having a good time because it doesn't feel like I had anything. Like in that scenario, if I win the die roll and then I win, I'm like, did I win or did I win because like I won the die roll? You know what I mean? It feels like it even takes the enjoyment out of it for me.
But it feels so good when you lose the die roll and still win.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have Worlds coming up. You're going to be there in Barcelona. Allegedly. And we have finally got to see what the Worlds promo will be. It is an extended art foil sigil of Solace. Is this the prettiest Flesh and Blood card you've ever seen?
I don't know if it's the prettiest, but it's definitely top 5, and it might be my favorite as far as like what it's meant to do, what it's meant to convey. So it's a full art foil sigil of Solace, but I don't know for sure if it's like meant to be this or if it's just supposed to look like it, but still technically be a place in Wraith or whatever. But the like cathedral that's in this art just looks an awful lot like La Sagrada Familia, which if you're not familiar, it's a very famous like historic building. It's actually still under construction. That's in Barcelona. And I love the idea of doing like a special promo that truly commemorates the event. And so like doing something with like that kind of iconic imagery is just wonderful for me. Like I'm very, very happy with how it turned out, and I will be trying to get as many of them as I can. I know you get them from side events. I've already told my wife, like, hey, I know we're going to wander around Barcelona and I'm not, I'm going to play in the calling, but I'm not planning on just playing cards all weekend. But I told her, I was like, hey, I'm going to buy some extra like go again packages or whatever, and you're going to sign up for events and drop after you get this. Just full stop. Like I'm going to get a bunch of these. So
yeah, worth it. Might as well. But yeah, I think that this is one of the coolest looking pieces they've done. It looks so good. And I am very jealous of the people who will be in Barcelona to obtain one, because I am 100% with you. When you can have something on the card that commemorates in a way that is visual the place where the event is being held, that is so much better than like a stamp that says Barcelona Worlds or whatever. It's such a nice little nod to the city, and I honestly blown away yet again by the art direction from Flesh and Blood from LSS. They're doing such a good job. That's all I got to say about that. A little housekeeping. So again, I know I'm a broken record at this point in time. However, the Realm 20K Invitational Weekend is December 1st through 3rd in Columbus. It's a 20K multi-format invitational. If you have 80 points on the Realm leaderboard, the link is in the show notes. You are qualified. You just need to respond to the email you received detailing if you'll be going or not. That event starts on Friday. There is a 10K brawl on Saturday that will qualify you for next year's invitational, as well as a 5K team sealed on Sunday, which will qualify you for next year's invitational as well. There will be a host of side events. There will be different games being played as well. So if you have, it's like, hey, I'm not really into Flesh and Blood at the moment, but I'd be really interested in playing, I don't know, fucking Pokemon or whatever. There'll be Pokemon there. There'll be Magic the Gathering. There'll be Alpha Clash. There'll be plenty of things going on for you to attend and have a good time with. Plus, it'll be kind of the party of the year. The cosplay contest has a cash prize, so that'll draw out some of the fun ones. There's a Corsham being built. There's so many things to like really do to make it feel special that it would be awful if you weren't there. And so my opinion is you should show up, because it'll be the most fun you have in an event this year. That's my take. Completely biased, because the people that are holding this are people I hold near and dear, and I really would love to see it succeed. It will, regardless of whether or not I keep promoting it or not, but it'll also be the most fun you have this year at an event. That's just the way I see it. So please show up. Let me come say hi. Darick will be there. I'll be there, amongst many of the other very, the litany of content creators and personalities, hosts and players that you normally see on streams. Most of them will be around in some capacity. So please show up, hang out. Don't be afraid to say hello if you run into us. You can be afraid of Darick, I guess. That's fine. Anything to add? You really usually don't, but
I have plenty to add.
Oh. Well, good talk then.
Yeah.
I'm glad you added it.
Oh, did you want me
would
to
you
add
like
it?
to add it?
It was a simple yes or no question. I was like, yeah, I got plenty to add.
Why are you always a shithead? Why is it constant?
Do you want to know why? Because I can be.
Oh,
that's
good enough.
That's what it comes down to. But also because somebody has to kind of like keep you honest or whatever, right? I feel like
when am I not honest?
No, I not like honest in that, but just keep you on your toes. You're at a point in your life where I don't think enough people push back on you. You're
you don't
a big,
see my
you're
job.
a big man. You're a big man at work.
That's not
You're,
true.
Big man in the flesh and blood community.
Also untrue.
And you're just surrounded by yes men. And so I need to be at a minimum a maybe.
This is
man.
the least honest thing you've ever said. Nothing that you have said is true in any regard. So go fuck yourself. That's where this is coming from.
All right. What I was going to add is that I know that we're a Flesh and Blood podcast, and so obviously we're going to highlight Flesh and Blood.
But on
the off chance that you are on the fence about going to the Realm Invitational, I just wanted to point out that there are a number of games that will be played there. Like, this is actually going to be like a card gaming weekend, not just, Flesh and Blood weekend. So if for whatever reason you want to show up, play Flesh and Blood, but then also want to play some other card games as well, that will be an option. And I would highly encourage you to participate in whatever events you will enjoy if it gets you to show up.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well said. Proud of you. Anything else?
Both teams played hard.
Both teams played hard. No notes. You're just using my lines now. That's good. Love it.
I mean, also, you're stealing all my puns now.
I try not to. I really do. I just lose consistently. To those of you who are patrons of FAP, you also have access to FAP After Dark, which is our unrecorded and completely unhinged content. The next one will be this Wednesday, actually, October 25th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time in the Discord. There is a FAP After Dark Discord channel. The co-hosts with me will be Barin from the Banished Zone and the producer extraordinaire, the velvety voiced and even more pleasant to look at than to listen to me. Greg, Darth Prentice, for those in the know, and there may even be a run-in or two from Charmer. You never know what's going to happen. He sometimes shows up, sometimes doesn't. He lives by his own rules. So if you are a member of the Patreon, you can get into that and come and listen. If you're not a member, you can join. And every tier, I should say paid tier of the Patreon, you can gets to join in on the fun. So if that's something you're interested in, is hearing what kind of shit we say that we don't say on this show, which, let's be fair here, we pretty much say whatever the fuck we want on this show. It gets a little bit looser in the FAP After Dark channel. So if you're interested in that, just come on and down and join the Patreon and come give it a listen. I think the smallest tier is $2 a month. So if you are willing to pay $2 every month to hear an unhinged Charmer rant, well, there you go. Moving on from there, we have some listener questions. Can we get through these?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
We can blaze through. Some of these will be very quick.
I fucking hate you. The first one is from Blaze Storm. What an asshole. Not Blaze Storm. Not you. You're great. This motherfucker.
Somebody clip that. Where is Flake for his out of context notes when you need him? We've got Logan just calling our listeners assholes. No wonder we get no respect. No wonder LSS doesn't like us.
We're
just
yourself.
Mean.
Yeah, we're just mean to our viewers. Yeah, that's right. Blaze Storm, who is a treasured member of the FAP community, asks, if Lexi and Icelander LL, who do you think will be at the top of the aggro food chain? My answer is simple. It's Fi. I think Icelander holds that deck down, and once it's kind of had the icy chains removed from it, it's just going to go back to being the best thing you can be doing if you want to be aggressive. Personal opinion.
Fi is like my gut reaction, but there is a part of me that wonders whether or not enough good quality testing has been done for us to know if it's still not just Romai. Like more akin to the red line.
Sure.
Dromai. It's capable of going wide, but if the dragons are not answered, then you kind of like keep that stuff on the board. You don't have to go through the hoops to get your Phoenix Flames back like Fi does.
Right.
And, Arsenal or Art of Wars or whatever. You can just like, I made a bunch of dragons and I'm still
Here they are.
So I don't know. I feel like it's one of the two. So I'm just going to answer with a draconic something.
Sure.
It is my answer, but
an uprising hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine. Like, so the only consideration I had was not actually for Dromai. The other one that I thought of was Dash. Like, there is a world where Dash is just the best aggro deck. Now, granted, it's probably the worst deck into Dromai, and that makes it like the consideration turned into, well, if Dromai is the best non-aggro deck, how are you, and you have an aggro deck in Fi that can just slam into Dromai and get over most of the time because you're getting every trigger you'd ever want because there are dragons to attack. Like, how is that just not the best thing to be doing? And granted, I yes, that resolves. But on the other side of it, like, is every other matchup just Dash is favored? Like, if that's the case, you could be build Dash, dodge Dromai's, hope that you can go faster than the Dromai can establish a board in that matchup and ignore the dragons completely and hope you can get them to 0. But I still think
I would
fine.
like to say that this is also a very small window in time. Because by the time that, you know, Icelander LLs, it might already be after we get the next set anyway, in which case there's a very strong chance that the best aggro deck could just be a Brute.
It could be.
Like, they're already kind of on the cusp anyway. They've been slowly getting better and better, and after we get this next set, I feel like we're going to be revisiting the intimate token once again.
I missed the intimate token. The intimate token's my favorite token.
Yeah.
I
think that's coming back.
Next listener question is from frequent asker of questions, Vintox. And Vintox asks, what do you think about LSS making cool new heroes for mech, but not giving them Arcane Barrier, making them basically not viable for competitive play? There are some items that could sideboard for Arcane and say -IO decks, but that still severely limits the competitive play of these heroes when Kano is still around. Also, do you think we'll see Arcane Barrier Evos in the expansion slot in the all Arcane set that was foreshadowed in interviews? I'm going to let you have at this one.
I think at some point we likely will see some Arcane Barrier Evos further down the line. Maybe it is in the expansion slot in an all Arcane upcoming set. Who knows? I do, however, think that part of the reason Teklevasan was released in the state that he is because he is very, very good against non-arcane heroes. I think Fi and Katsu can give him a hard time, again, because they can still leak damage. They go wide enough, whether it's the, you know, poke for one with the Kodachis, or it's just the Phoenix Flame getting in every turn, whatever the case may be. There are ways around it. But when you think about just like a purely defensive deck, I actually think that current Teklevasan builds are better at stopping the tall physical attacks than even Bravo. I think Bravo is technically a more aggressive deck than what your average Teklevasan one will be right now. And so you're right. And so to balance that, you have to give him a weakness, and that's a glaring one. And I think that it makes sense, you know, from a flavor standpoint as well, right? He's armoring up, so of course he's going to be really hard to hit fairly. So what do? You hit him unfairly with magic, right? You lightning bolt his ass. So
bolt the fucking bird. God damn it.
Right. So I do think that's the case. Now, as far as the other two go, I don't think that they're actually being held back by the lack of Arcane Barrier. I think that there's absolutely going to be Dash and Max Nitro builds that can still slot in Arcane Barrier as necessary. I think that they are mostly being held back right now by lack of familiarity, and also a bit of other decks doing what they appear to do, but better. Now, I say appear because, again, right now it's, when you look around, you know, Max is currently being brewed as this, you know, hyper aggressive, you know, crank boost, rinse, repeat thing. And who knows if that's going to end up being the best way to build him or whatever, right? But if that's the case, then I feel like there are likely other decks that can do it better. So we will have to wait and see. But I don't think that Dash.io and I don't think that Max are currently held back by the lack of Arcane Barrier. I think that they are more just held back by the lack of time with those decks. And it's not even just time with those decks, but also like the Arcane Barrier is not the only piece of the puzzle here as far as holding them back. We started this broadcast by going on a tangent, but we also started this broadcast by talking about how we've been in a format with a clear best deck for a while, and we're at the tail end of said format. This has kind of been the closest to solved as it's been in a while. I don't want to say 100% solved because I never think any meta is 100% solved, but it's been pretty close for a while. So yeah, we get these new heroes, but their litmus test right out of the gate for most of your competitive folks are, is it as good as Lexi? Because if not, why do I care?
Why would I play it?
So that's the other piece, if I'm being honest. When, Lexi goes, perhaps Icelander or whatever, I think we're going to see more experimentation with them. But that was the litmus test right out of the gate. Why am I, caring about Crankmaster when I can 3 kind?
So if we were a PG-13 podcast, I may have to edit out Crankmaster. Thank God we're not. I'm going to say something, and I'm going to fucking hate that I'm going to say this because of everything we talked about earlier. However, I think the thing about Dash.io and Max the Hype Nitro is that they are mechanically, fuck you, difficult to work with. The actual abilities themselves require pre-planning, and they require a knowledge of sequencing that is, out of the box, not the easiest thing to grasp.
Yeah.
And
so I will piggyback on that. And this is not meant to be a shot at ninja players, right? I do not want to be reductive here, but let's be honest. If you're a Katsu player, your combo cards tell you on the cards what order to play them in. Your sequencing is printed on the card for you. Sort of. Whereas obviously with Max and with Dash, not only is the sequencing not sorted out for you, but in the case of Dash, the ability to play cards from the top of your deck as an instant also messes up your sequencing, right? So Dash is, in many ways, Dash.io is like the physical version of Kano, in that you're going to have these complex sequencings to maximize your damage, also playing with the top of your deck. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you gotta factor all of that in as far as why they're not showing up yet.
No, 100%. And that's, again, from my feeling when I was looking at these and talking to people about playing Dash, about playing Max, less Teklo, but the comment was always, I think the deck's really good, but the deck's really fucking hard. And it's yeah. And if you're talking about having to navigate 9 rounds, sometimes you take something that's easier but close in the power level because you're going 9 rounds. And focusing through that is so fucking hard. It is super difficult for anybody that's tried to pull that off. So when you can take some tax, when you're not a robot, like Michael Hamilton, as an example, love you, Michael, you're not actually a robot, but when you have that brain that can kind of keep going, or if you're powered by ham sandwiches, then basically, if you're not one of those two things, taking the easier route through those longer tournaments is saving yourself a little bit of mental energy, which may be very important. So a lot of people will take that advantage because that's how you get through these things. So yeah, saying they're not competitive for, viable for competitive play is a little bit of a misnomer right now. But I think that there is a point where they will be competitive, and the only thing holding them back is their lack of ability to deal with arcane damage. So LSS addressing that in the expansion slot, okay, I think I can buy into that. That makes enough sense to me. The issue with Teklovasin specifically is, I think, and you kind of bring it up here, is you kind of need Arcane Barrier Evos, because the Evo game plan is important to what Teklevasan wants to do. So unless you have an Evo, like an Arcane Barrier base or something, it's really difficult to fit those slots into the Teklevasan deck as it's currently constructed. And I don't know if there's a better way to construct it. I'm definitely not a doctor when it comes to that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, just dying to Kano doesn't feel great.
I mean, I also just, like, the problem with Teklevasan is that, again, you have to have a critical mass of Evos, because if you're not running them, then there's no reason to run him over the other mechanologists, right?
Yeah, why blank your text box?
Right. And so even if there are, you know, more aggressive or better, more efficient ways to build him, at the end of the day, like, you're playing Teklevasan because you want to put Evos on. And if you're doing that, you're not going to have Arcane Barrier. So
is what it is.
It is what it is.
You're opening combo off into a singularity and then do some weird shit, but you might just be doing that, and you may like go through all the hoops. You maybe do all the stuff. You know, you work the shaft, you cup the balls, you swallow all the gravy, and you get your singularity off. And they're like, okay, how many reasons? You know, with all your triggers, here's 45 arcane. Are you dead? Great. Moving on. Another one from Vintox, because I think he's making up for lost time. Given only the little bit we know about heavy hitters, what classes do you think will be in the set? Also, we have seen a demi-hero in the last 2 sets. What do you think the demi-hero will look like in heavy hitters, and why is it Light Warrior Dorinthia? It's not Light Warrior Dorinthia. I'm going to put that out there. Darick?
It's Earth Brute. It's got to be Earth Brute.
God damn it. It's not fucking Earth Brute. Give me Draconic Brute before you... maybe not. Hold on. Draconic Brute.
Yeah, so you can run Thaw.
No, that's not good enough. But you can... Draconic Brute. What would that give you? Like Blaze Headlongs and shit. I think that's fine, right? Oh, it can run Tome. You could have Royal Brute. That
yeah,
also...
Royal Brute doesn't sound fun.
Doesn't sound fun to play against. The... I think it'll be Brute Warrior X. X right now leans towards Guardian, sadly. Like, it's the only thing that really also makes sense with a heavy hitter.
Yeah, but if it is Guardian, it will be, in my opinion, it will be a very Crush-centric. Or Tower-centric. So my actual answer to this was going to be Brute Warrior Guardian, but that the Guardian was not going to be a defensive Guardian. I expect we're going to get any Guardian cards in this set might be ones with a lot more 2 blocks. And I expect more pumps, and I expect it to be more tower. I think that the round the table thing was kind of our, you know, preview, if you will, to the other way to play Guardian. They've been trying to push what I call the pump and thump. Now, obviously, the card thump benefits from it, but just in general, like that play style, they've been trying to push pump and thump on Guardian as a play style for as long as I can remember. Whether it's Earth cards meant to pump that you're then, you know, swinging with Oldhim or whatever. And I think that Tower is the next way for them to try to do that. And I think if you're going to have this, you know, brutal in the arena, heavy hitters throwing haymakers thing, right? You're going to have the Brutes, and then you're going to have the Warriors. Guardian makes the most sense, as unless they go with, could just be a 2-class set. I expect it to be a 3-class, more like Outsiders. And if it is a third, it will either be Guardian or it'll be... there's also a chance that we could get a class we've not seen before. It could be a time, just like with Outsiders, like, yeah, we had Assassin and Dynasty, but the reality is Assassin really debuted with Outsiders. And I think that if we get a third class, you know, we could get something else that's more martial oriented and or you know, arena oriented, if you will, and have it go that way. But that was my train of thought, was if there is a third in it, you know, it's Brute and it's Warrior, and there's got to be a third, I would say it's going to be Guardian, but offensive minded with like the new Tower mechanic.
Yeah, I could honestly see it being sort of like the Outsider setup, right? So you have 2 separate ways of building warriors. You have 2 separate specific warriors. and then you have 2 specific separate brutes, and then you have 1 guardian, but the guardian shares dual class cards with the other 2. I could see that working very well. I think this might be where we finally get an axe pummel. I've been wanting one forever.
Well, yeah, so there's that too. But like when you're thinking about, so one of the cool things Outsiders did as well, right, was that it brought back some heroes that we'd already seen. So we got to see not just, you know, Katsu and Azalea show up back up, but like Benji as well. So when I was thinking through this like Guardian and Tower mechanic and whatever, I would love this to be a set where we get Valda back. I think Valda fits this set thematically perfectly, and then that could play into the other way that you could play Guardian but still have it meant to be offensive, right, which is with her hero power. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
Or Yoji Disgrace Protector, you know, something like that.
Yeah, we could get that.
I think that with Warrior you're going to get
Ronin Yoji.
Ronin Yoji would be sick. But
cool.
I think you'll if you're gonna get Adult Kasai, it's probably here. And so that's your Sword Warrior, and then there'll be an Axe Warrior. With your brutes, you're going to get a brute we've never seen before, and then probably a version of Reinar, because there's only the one Reinar.
Yeah, and I hope that whatever the new brute is also axe centric, and that's where your overlap is.
Right. Yeah.
Because we know that there's like, you know, axes for brutes anyway, but I would like to see more emphasis on axes and the overpower mechanic in general.
Yep. And I think that because we saw such an emphasis on overpower in Bright Lights, that it's probably the mechanic they're going to lean into more instead of Dominate. I think they wanted to do that to begin with, and Dominate was worded in such a way that it was just a little too much. And so overpower is the answer to Dominate being a little too good. So having overpower be the kind of Dominate replacement makes sense. That might have only come with the realization that they put Dominate on Starvo and went, oh shit, maybe.
I don't think it's as much that as it is that they want more ways to. So the interesting thing about Flesh and Blood, right? At its core, it's, you know, it's my number has to be bigger than your number to leak damage, or I have to find a way to force damage through by either going wide, break points, or you know, this isn't a game where there is no flying, right? There's no evasion per se.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So effects like Dominate are one of the ways that you do that, but you don't want to just have Dominate be the only one. You want there to be other ways. So I think that part of like introducing overpower isn't necessarily an indictment on Dominate being too much, is that they just want to have different ways to leak damage so that games still close out and not everything goes to fatigue, while also allowing things to be thematically different.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think we're saying the same thing. But with this set, I really finally want, like, my wish list is an Adult Kasai. That's always my wish list, though. That's never not my wish list. And then Axe Pummel would be the next thing on the wish list. Because you have Razor Reflex, you have Pummel, but we don't have anything for axes. We have an action that is axe only, or I think there might be actually a couple of them. Spill Blood. And,
yeah, Spill Blood is
is it Shatter? Is that axes only, or is that anything? I don't remember for sure, but yeah. So Spill Blood is axes, and Pummel is obviously clubs and hammers, right?
Felling Swing.
That
and Cleave. I think Cleave is the one you were thinking of.
Cleave is the one I'm thinking of. Yep.
But I forgot Felling Swing also exists.
Yep, but they're warrior specific.
But again, remember how I was saying that I wanted Valda to make a reappearance, and I also wanted axes to get more love? Her name is literally Bright Axe.
It is. She could have a Bright Axe.
Give me a Guardian Axe, baby.
That's what you need in your life, is a Guardian Axe?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, I guess. Last question is from, and it's not fucking Light Warrior Dorinthia. They're not gonna put light in this set. If you're gonna get a demi hero, it's going to be, God, what would you do? Like, that's a
Earth Brute.
So that makes no sense, because if the Earth Brute is if the Earth Brute is the demi hero, you couldn't start with Earth cards in your deck. So what's the fucking point?
Well, you can't start with shadow cards in your mechanologist thing, but Teklevasan still has the shadow keyword.
So you just want them to be Earth for the sake of being Earth?
Yes, so that I can go back to like 2020 or whatever it was when I first said that and be like, see, I was right.
It wasn't 2020, it was 2022.
Yeah, I know. I'm just being, no,
it might have been 2023 actually.
Who knows? I'm just being an asshole at this point, and I'm fully aware of it.
It's totally reasonable for you to be an asshole.
No, I mean, I would want it to be an Earth Brute here. I honestly think if we do get another demi hero, and there's a strong chance that we don't get one. But what I would like to see is instead it like play into furthering their theme. I would like to see, like, if we get an adult Kasai, but maybe we get like a demi hero version of her or whatever. Maybe she gets so much money from killing folks that she just becomes a merchant or does something completely wild.
That's really wild.
Maybe her demi hero thing is actually the first alternate win con, where if you amass enough money, she just retires to a farm. She pulls a Thanos.
She pulls a Thanos. I was thinking more along the lines of a guardian that becomes a berserker. So they just you know when you change or when you transform into this demi hero, you destroy all your armor, and your attacks get bigger, your health pool gets lower, and your so your weapon attacks get bigger, your health pool gets lower, and you end up with a with go again on your weapon attacks or something along those lines. Just something where it's more berserker, right? Like it's a guardian finally has had enough, throws their fucking armor off and says, let's go. I'm done with this shit. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Personal opinion. Your mileage may vary.
Mileage may vary.
Yes, that's why I drive a hybrid. Okay. So moving on, Donnie K of this, we're going to give them a shout out, the Siblings in Cardboard podcast, because they're new on the scene, and, give them a listen. Not bad. I think they do a good job. Personal preference. They are kind of a more laid back show, similar to us. So, but just not quite as wildly profane at times. But Donnie asks, I think he asked this on Siblings in Cardboard as well. If Wrath were a region in the world of Pokemon, who would be the Elite Four and what types would they specialize in? Bonus, which hero do you think would be your rival if you were a Pokemon trainer in that world? Okay, so I'm going to get this out of the way from my end of it. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
How dare you?
I know literally nothing about Pokemon, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. In the year 2000, I was a then Babbage's, which you would now know as GameStop, employee. So what I had to deal with on a regular basis, daily, multiple times a day, were fucking Pokebrats coming in and screaming at their mothers and grandmothers to buy them Pokemon shit at all points in time. And it developed into a visceral hatred for all things Pokemon. That hatred has subsided in my age. I have moved away from it. But similar to the years I spent in retail, I don't want to revisit it. I don't want to be any part of this. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Same thing where my wife is often like, I want to go to this store. And I'm like, I don't. And she's like, but I want you to go with me. But I still don't. And she's like, why? You've been out of retail for 8 years. It's like, yeah, those wounds haven't healed. It's always there. Whenever I'm in a retail store, I'm looking around and you can't turn shit off. It's like, I see things that are on a shelf that aren't faced correctly and I just want to go fix it. Or somebody is like doing a shitty job with customer service. I just want to be like, listen, you could be doing this so much better. Why are you fucking up? But I know that's not my place and it's very presumptive of me and I don't. But I'd like to avoid that. Same with Pokemon. I start in on it and it's just like, man, I really can only hear screaming children right now in ways that are not okay for any child to scream at their parents. And I need to just walk away. So I don't interact with Pokemon. So when you say, Elite Four. I don't know what the fucking Elite Four is. I have no clue. I know what a Pokemon trainer is. I think that's like, what's her name? Brock in Misty. Is that it? And Ash, because he's the same name as the dude in Evil Dead. That's how I know that one. It's Brock Lesnar, Misty Knight, and Ash Williams. That's how I know those three. Now I know those aren't their names, but that's how I remember those names. I don't know who the fuck anyone else is. There's Jesse and James, because Jesse James. So that's Team Rocket with the dumb fucking cat. I know that one. We're done. We have exhausted my Pokemon knowledge outside of Pikachu as some random lightning cat. Oh, and getting high while watching the Jigglypuff episode is amazing. Is he a mouse? I don't fucking know. But getting high while watching the Jigglypuff episode of Pokemon, of the first season of Pokemon, is great. And I recommend it to anybody that partakes in that sort of thing. Now, Charmer, since you probably have a real answer to this question, would you like to address it?
Oh, I definitely do. And I may have put way too much thought into this. So the Elite Four. All right. We have Dromai, who specializes in dragon and fire type Pokemon. All right. We've got Levia, who's going to specialize in dark and ghost type Pokemon. Teklevasan, who will specialize in steel and rock type Pokemon. So, man's got to have his Steelixes. And Oldhim, who is going to come at you with the weird combo, but rounding it out with grass and ice type Pokemon.
Earth and that makes sense. But let's dial one thing back here. You said Levia was what again?
Dark and ghost.
Isn't that just chain?
It is chain as well, potentially. Part of the reason that I went with Levia is because I wanted an even gender split as far as the Elite Four.
Representation matters.
Yeah, representation matters. But also, if I'm being honest, I think that Levia is more likely to be a Pokemon trainer just because of her... I think that her demon exposure, lore-wise, is a bit more than Chain. Like, yeah, you've got Eclipse, but outside of that, you don't really have the iconography of what Levia has with her cards, right? Like she's just a bit more demon-y in my mind.
Please proceed.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, Chain gets like more.
Please proceed.
What's the I would say Vincent, but the problem with Vincent is she's not really Pokemon friendly.
No, really not. No.
Yeah, that's the other part of it. So anyway, those are my Elite Four with their specializations. I could also come up with some other ideas for like what their types would be for matches for gym battles and things along the way. I think that there's some fun stuff that you can do there.
There are gyms?
There are gyms, and you go and you battle and you earn enough badges to then like compete for the championship. But anyway, I think my rival has got to be Prism, because every incarnation of that fucking hero is my rival anyway.
Fuck the police. That's
if I'm going by attitude, I think that like in a traditional Pokemon setting, a good choice to be a rival would be Phi, just because he gives off that like emo Zuko, I want to be the best, fighter feel anyway. So like I think that he would be a good choice thematically to be somebody's rival. But for me personally, it's just Prism, because even when I'm playing decks that are good into her, I just don't like to play against Prism. All versions of Prism. Fuck Prism, man.
So I feel like the Captain America meme, because you're like Zuko, and I'm like, I get that reference. But I obviously fuck all versions of Prism. I'm with you. Like, whatever. Fuck that hero in general. It can go the fuck away anytime. I had a visceral reaction to seeing Prism returning. I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. I want no part of this. I don't care if it's bad or good.
Somebody was playing Iris Prism at my ProQuest.
Did you drag them outside and explain to them why their actions are wrong and how they should be ashamed of them?
No.
Did you consider it?
No. I I was checked out by that point. I'll be honest. Like,
all right, that's fair. But yeah, so what is an Elite Four? Like, can you help?
They're
me with
like,
that?
They're what they sound like, right? They're like supposed to be like the 4 premier or 4 best in any given like region. So like each game always has an Elite Four. They're supposed to be like your big bosses. So in a traditional Pokemon game, every region also has like a number of gyms. And normally when you go to a gym, there's a series of challenges along with a gym leader or a gym trainer. And usually those gyms are themed around like one type of Pokemon. So like you'll go and there will be like the water type trainer, and you do their things and then you beat them, you get your badge. And after you get a number of badges, you get to go compete for like the championship. And that's also like usually where you have to challenge the Elite Four. So the Elite Four are like your high elo. They're like your chess grandmasters of the Pokemon world, sure. Right? And then they also usually have types that they specialize in. You know, more modern games, they traditionally, instead of having just like one, they have like a couple, right? They all of the trainers have some sort of theme, because part of what Pokemon is figuring out what counters what, right? There's, you know, each Pokemon type has things where they'll deal more damage against another type, or they are resistant to damage from other types, right? So water is good against fire, for example, right? So you use the Pokemon types for that checks and balances, but also there's just, you know, thematically a fair number of overlap between some of those and like, you know, hero themes from Flesh and Blood, which is kind of why this is such a fun question. So if you're not familiar, I just pulled it up. This is the full list of like types for Pokemon, right? So you have normal, just a normal type. These are just your, like, they don't
basic
really
bitch Pokemon. They don't do much else.
But they're, or also this is kind of the catch-all for like, it's just weird.
Oh.
So you have normal type Pokemon, and then you have fire, water, grass, which is like their version of Earth, electric, Kano, ice, fighting. So these are like martial artists.
Machop. I remember a thing called a Machop.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
So wrestlers, martial artists, there's like Hitmonlee, Hitmonchamp, that sort of thing, right? So fighting, poison, ground. Now this is not the same as normal. Ground are things that usually are like in the ground, but like not
burrowing. Yeah,
usually. Or they'll do things with like earthquakes, but they themselves aren't rock necessarily. So anyway, so you have ground, you have flying, psychic, which is not like on this list, but I know that that's what that's supposed to be. But anyway, psychic is one. Bug, rock, ghost, dragon, dark, steel, and fairy.
There are 18.
Yeah, there's a bunch. And Pokemon can have 1 or 2 types.
All right. Like, the more you know, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got through that show. It was not short.
I mean, it's not short, but I love that question. Donnie K, thank you.
I'm very glad that you love that question.
I know you don't get it, but as somebody who loves Pokemon, like, this is actually a fantastic question. Like, this is a cool question.
Yeah, I don't understand this one. You can hit me with basically any other sort of thing. Like, I guess I don't know One Piece at all either. So if you ask me something about Monkey Luffy or whatever the fuck the dude's name is, I'll know nothing.
So like, which fab hero is Michelangelo and why is it Starvo?
Is Michelangelo like the turtle?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's 100% not Starvo. There's got to be a more dude bro character than Starvo. God, you hit me with this when I wasn't thinking about it. Like, it might actually be Max the Hype Nitro, but he seems very like...
He seems more Casey Jones to me, but...
he's very Casey Jones, actually. Which would make Dash April O'Neil, but the...
yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, that tracks, actually. The... who is somebody that's like more like dude bro? Starvo. That's pretty hard.
Star of the Show was the only one that comes off. Like I don't know why. I know he's supposed to be the exact same character, but when I see Star of the Show with that stupid big grin for his art, I see him and I think like, this is Keanu Reeves in Point Break. Like, that's where my like, I know he's supposed to be like the circus, you know,
Sure,
entertainer.
sure.
But for whatever reason, I look at him and I'm like, no, you're, you know.
Yeah, this is totally an ick. So if you get it, you get it. But whenever I see star of the show, all I see is the aristocrats, and I just die laughing. So anybody that knows what that means will get it. But
I'm just saying that star of the show in particular is, in my opinion, the closest that Flesh and Blood has to like a Gaston. And that also therefore is, in my mind, very close to...
No, because Gaston has a developed brain. There's no way that Starvo has a developed brain.
I'm just saying that Michelangelo and Gaston both can't read, so...
Oh, right. Very true. Donatello is Teclavassin. Raphael is probably Phi, just super angsty, you know? Maybe even Shane, you know? But probably
I think
Hothead
Phi.
Phi. Yeah, that makes sense. Who's the Leonardo in this? Probably
Katsu.
Katsu, that's my thing, is Katsu, because Katana's one.
I mean, also Katsu's the OG Ninja Turtle for Flesh and Blood. He's got to be one of them.
He's got to be somebody. So yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay. So they give you a little bonus question that no one fucking asked us for. Who's the Splinter?
Genus, what you need?
Genus, what you need? Genus, what you need? So Azure, if you're listening, we now need a Genus What You Need done up as a rat. Kind of done up as Splinter from Ninja Turtles. Actually, Azure, if you can just do all of these for us, that'd be great. All right. So now that I got that out of the way, let's close this bitch up. Let's thank some patrons. How does that sound?
I'll allow it.
That sounds great. So let's thank our associate producers. We have Alex, Andy, C-Dubs, Syndra, Kenny, and the Salty Sea Cat. For our executive producers on up, we have Blaze Storm, who is a valued member of the fucking team. Dom, Josh L. Let's get it ready. I got some booze in me this time. This will feel good. Let's loosen up a little bit here. Get the lungs going. All right. Lance, good thrust. Matt Two Tokes.
I think you pulled a muscle on that. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt Two Tokes. We appreciate you as well, but that
I got put something into that. I put some mustard on that one. Matt Two Tokes, Poxodus, Papa Mike, Philip, Rich, Taylor, and Trevor. If you are interested in becoming a member of the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. There are some number of fucking tiers to choose from. Remember, every paid tier does get you into the FAP After Dark. So if you're interested in coming and hearing us with some special guests talk about random shit with absolutely no real tethers on us, feel free to come and join in. It'll be a good time. If you're looking to contact the show, you can find me. You can find the show at FleshPod on Twitter. You can email us, fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can also just join the Discord and tell us what you think. If you want to tell us that we're pieces of shit, cool. Totally fine with that. If you want to tell us we're great, we won't believe you, but we'll accept the praise. But you can join in anytime you want to. You do not need to be a patron to join the Discord. You can just come in and hang out. You just need to be a patron to be involved in the FAP After Dark episodes. That's really the only thing gated in the Patreon. Charmer, where can they find you?
Collecting receipts of any and all praise that we receive.
Oh,
so that I can return it.
It's a small box. We have, wait a second. Okay, that tracks. I like that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that one was good.
That was good.
It's got the double on it. Yeah,
there are layers and entendres. That's all I ever want in life. Mm-hmm. There's layers and entendres. But where else can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter as @thatcharmer. That's charm 3R because I'm edgy or whatever. I don't know. On YouTube and Twitch, it's just Charmer. I promise. I keep saying it. I promise I'm going to start doing more with that. I just need time. Yeah. Well, everything has been thrown into a whack because I finally got cleared where I can start working out again. So I'm trying to figure out what my new schedule is going to be so I can carve out time for content, carve out time for gym, carve out time for full-time job, carve out time for wife and kids, and then also stream and do YouTube stuff. So
there's sleep is in there somewhere, right?
No.
Fuck.
No, that will be reduced. So anyway, like I'm still trying to figure it out, but the goal is to start doing it again more often and sooner rather than later. So you can find me again, Twitch, YouTube is Charmer. Pretty much every social media is that Charmer. That's again, that Charm3R. And easiest way is just ping me in the Discord. Like Logan said, we're in there, we're hanging out. Shout out to the Pickle Posse. I love you.
That I haven't left yet, but fuck, man, it's been close a couple of times. But yeah, so I mean, if you want to look for me personally, Twitter, actually everywhere is just Logan Peterson. It's just my name. There's no other real name that I go by anywhere. So I think that might be like on Threads or some shit. It's Logan Peterson 80. I don't fucking know. But if you want to find me, the easiest way is actually through the Flesh and Pod socials. So yeah, send me a message there. And Darick, next week is episode 100 in a row.
Yeah, now is probably a bad time to tell you I can't make it.
Yeah, it probably is a very bad time to tell me you can't make it. So, in other words, I don't accept that, and you have to be here. Sorry. But you can just expect the same show. No shenanigans. We would never do that to you. We would
Never.
Always provide you with the same show with no bells, no whistles, no extras, even if it's number 100. It's just going to be plain old missionary fap. That's all she's going to be. Well, perfect. No notes. We're going to go ahead and end on that one. So we'll talk to you all next week for episode 100. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.